Hello, everybody, and welcome to your favorite health economics podcast, Health Econ on the Go. I am your host, Oguncano, and joining me is Matilde Bankelegom. How are you, Matilde?
Hi, very good. And you, Ogun?
Very, very good. Where are you right now?
In Brussels, in my house, like getting ready to go to bed.
Ready, getting ready. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so for today, as always, thank you very much for listening to us. And I promise you that we have a very exciting episode for this month. So today we are unpacking the key takeaways from the HIMSS 2024 Global Health Conference and Exhibition that was held in Orlando, Florida. This conference was not only highlighted by cutting edge technologies, but also set a blueprint for addressing the present challenges in healthcare. The HIMSS 2024 conference aimed to showcase the latest advancements in healthcare IT with a strong focus on artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and digital health innovations. This event is particularly relevant now as the healthcare sector continues to integrate more digital solutions, facing both opportunities and challenges in improving patient care and operational efficiency. With over more than 30,000 attendees, the conference brought together industry leaders, healthcare professionals, and tech experts to discuss the future of healthcare technology. Now, let's explore how these developments are shaping the landscape for health economics and policymakers, which is the reason why we are gathered here today. This conference highlighted several opportunities for health economists and policymakers, particularly in the areas of AI driven efficiencies and improved healthcare delivery systems. AI technologies like ambient clinical documentation and predictive analytics are poised to reduce costs and enhance the quality of care, aligning with economic goals of sustainability in healthcare. Moreover, innovations such as the Ziplines drop delivery system for medical supplies promise to improve access to healthcare in remote areas, a key policy focus for improving the global health equity. This HIMSS 2024 conference has set the stage for future directions in health policy, emphasizing the need for robust cybersecurity measures and responsible AI implementation. Discussions around data privacy, ethical AI use, and the integration of digital tools into healthcare practices are crucial for developing future policies that protect and empower patients. Matilde?
Wow, very interesting. And you're right, like we are even unconsciously really incorporating in all the healthcare practice, all the new technologies. I don't think in cities and most villages, everybody is working with a computer at least. So quite important. And cybersecurity, where is so much data stored there. So it's something that we easily forget as a medical doctor. You don't always think about that. I don't remember having that in my courses when we were studying. So really interesting. And also the fact to mention AI, I think it's something that was also quite important for the ISPOR, what they were projecting for the year as a key discussion point. And for the ISPOR conference, it was in Atlanta this month, so in May. They also had quite a few conversations on AI and how it's being used, or it can be. In this case, it was more health economics to do the models, but interesting also the security around it and what is the data we can feed AI and how it can be used. So very, very interesting points. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, and the future is here right now. AI is going to take over a lot of the discourse, a lot of the policy making is already shaping some of the strategies. You just plug in some problems that you might have, some key takeaways that you need to address in some high priority setting areas, some opportunities, and AI will kind of drive the conversation. So it is here to stay. So I think it's a matter of time until we start seeing more published articles related to AI efficiency and how to implement it in the health policy making process.
Yeah, I think AI is again a case of in technology where it's implemented before we have policies. So policies are trying to keep up, but it goes so fast, all the new technologies that it's hard for because of the policy making process that can be slower than innovation to keep up, no? So quite important to see that conversation and thanks to science and all the papers to feed that conversation. So let's see what happens. Okay, well, I'll get started with my first paper. And it's a paper published in the Journal of Comparative Effectiveness Research, and it's written by Chakrapani Balijepali, so sorry about pronunciation, Laxmi Gulapali, and Yuhi Joshi, and Nigel Rawson. Really sorry about a pronunciation.
Flawless, flawless, excellent pronunciation.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the author won't be happy with me, but I'm really sorry about that. Well, it's important to note that the work I'm gonna present, it's been funded by AbbVie Corporation, which is a pharmaceutical company in the US. So why did I choose this paper? It's a paper that's kind of a follow-up and another perspective to what we discussed last month with the paper that Ogun presented, which was the cost and value of cancer medicine in a single payer public health system in Ontario, Canada. And that paper presented the cost of funding treatment drug. So the paper for today, it's called The Impact of Willingness to Pay Threshold on Price Reduction Recommendation for Oncology Drugs, a review of assessment conducted by the Canadian Agency for Drugs and Technology in Health. So as a background to this paper, since the late 2020, the Canadian Agency of Drugs and Technology in Health, CADTH, has set a cost threshold of 50,000 Canadian dollar per quality adjusted life year QALY for both cancer and non-cancer drug. It's thought that this threshold affects the time it takes for cancer drugs to become available in Canada. So in this paper, the researcher looked at how the price reductions influenced the time it took for discussion and negotiation about cancer drugs. And they looked at this in the time period between January 2020 and December 2022. So they found that after the 103 assessments that took place in that time period, 57% recommended a price reduction of over 70% from the original list price to meet the cost effectiveness threshold set by the Canadian agency, CADTH. Surprisingly, 8% of these drugs were still not cost effective even with a 100% price reduction. So among the drugs with a clear benefit, 45% were recommended at a price reduction of at least 70%. This study showed that there is a divergence between drug-sponsored incremental cost-effectiveness ratio, the ICER, and the one used by the Canadian agency CADTH. And this leads to a need for price reduction to meet the 50,000 Canadian dollar per QALY threshold. So for drugs with a clear benefit, the time taken for discussion and negotiation was slightly shorter compared to those with uncertainty about benefit. And overall, the study which is based on, kind of limited negotiation status data, showed that oncology drugs with higher recommended price reduction by the Canadian agency also had longer negotiation times, particularly when the recommended price reduction were 90% above. So in summary, when there is the Canadian Agency for Technology in Health says we need a reduction in price, and negotiation are going to be long.
Yeah, and it will be good from someone from the audience or someone that knows someone from Canada to tell us what is going on, why there is so much intense and really technical and robust evidence surrounding the cancer medicines purchase, cancer medicine development in Canada, or at least what is the government like priority setting around cancer drugs. I know like most of the population in Canada, it's slowly but steady moving toward having a more advanced age population. So this kind of research just makes sense given the population pyramid that we are starting to see. So, Tilden, according to the article, the CADTH thresholds seems to have some challenges moving forward. Could you briefly talk about this?
So, yeah, according to the article, the primary issue with the CADTH threshold is a significant divergence between the drug sponsor ICER, the incremental cost effectiveness ratio, and the one from the CADTH. So they use different ICERs. And the divergence often leads to recommendation for substantial price reduction to meet the willingness to pay threshold of 50,000 Canadian dollar per quali. And this threshold, while intended to maintain cost effectiveness, can delay the negotiation process and potentially restrict timely access to those life-saving medications. So there might be a need for changing the threshold or the way the ICER is calculated. So that's two different way to solve that issue, and there might be others, but it's something that they need to take into account, that there is a lot of new drugs and sometimes they might not be on time in the market.
Yeah, and these WTP thresholds are always somewhat arbitrary. They vary a lot by agency to agency. I haven't seen two agencies from the same country, but I know they vary a lot from study to study, and then you see what's the real life looks like for these thresholds. So yeah, it makes sense to just critique them to be knowledgeable about what is this for each country. So yeah, thank you very much. So for my paper this month, I will focus on a study called "Does Paper Performance Design Matter? Evidence from Brazil," published in the famous Health Policy and Planning journal, which is parented by LSHTM. So the setup to set up a little bit about the scene, why this paper came to light. We know that pay for performance has become a popular strategy worldwide to enhance healthcare services by linking financial incentives to performance outcomes by health providers. We all know this. However, the effectiveness of these schemes can vary significantly, which brings us to the core of our discussion. The design of these schemes is a critical role for their success or failure. So, depending on the design. This study provides a comprehensive analysis of Brazil's national pay for performance scheme, known as the Primary Care Access and Quality Program, the PMAC. This program was implemented to improve the quality of primary healthcare across a vast number of municipalities, making it one of the largest of its kind globally. The research conducted a national survey of municipal health managers to characterize the design of the PMAC across different regions. They focus on several design features, such as the size of the bonuses, the frequency of these payments, and which healthcare providers were incentivized. The performance of family health teams was then assessed in a relation to these variables. One of the key findings from the study is that the frequency and the size of the bonuses payments significantly influence healthcare quality. Surprise, surprise. Municipalities that offer frequent and larger bonuses saw markedly better performance in their healthcare teams. This suggests not just that the presence of financial incentives, but their thoughtful structuring and implementation are crucial in enhancing healthcare delivery. Moreover, this study utilized a cluster analysis to group municipalities based on their pay for performance design features. It was found that municipalities with a combination of large bonuses, frequent payments, and a wide coverage of incentivized workers significantly outperformed those that did not adopt such a comprehensive incentive strategies. So this evidence, I would say, is pivotal for policymakers and health administrators, not just in Brazil, but globally, just to think it carefully, as it underscores the importance of carefully designed pay for performance schemes. The right mix of incentive size, payment frequency, and recipient coverage can substantially elevate the standards of healthcare services. So I will say, for conclusion for this study from Brazil, it will serve as a robust example, which can be then implemented and somewhat implemented in other contexts of how nuanced, well-structured financial incentives are fundamental to the success for pay-for-performance schemes in healthcare. It calls for a strategic approach to design these schemes, ensuring that they are tailored to meet the specific needs and context of different healthcare systems. So they make sense. We know they are important, but again, as we always say, it's important to also have the evidence and have this very well documented.
Wow, thank you. Very interesting. And it's true that there is not one size that fits them all. We need always to change, to play with the context we are in, with every different the structure of the healthcare system or the culture. So quite interesting to have at least the tools to understand, okay, what can be moved around for our plan to be successful. I had a bit of a question because you talked about the bonuses, and I can imagine that the higher the bonuses, there were higher impact. But is there a threshold, like a point where additional bonuses does not have an impact on the behavior of the workers?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So, based on previous studies, there seems to be a threshold beyond which additional bonuses may not substantially change behavior. In the study that was published in 2018, the threshold seems to be over 80% of the total amount of the PMAC funding allocated to workers, which is the study that we are referring to.
Okay, wow, that's surprising. Also, one would thought that always more money makes increase, but it, the fact that it seemed to be a limit, it's also very important. No, so don't we allocate the money the best we can, and we don't give them a sum that don't increase the quality. So that's quite interesting. Thank
It's
you.
like happiness; it kind of plateaus after some point.
Yeah, it's almost it's in my mind. It sounded counterintuitive, but it's interesting to see there is evidence against. Okay, so thank you very much. Very interesting. A very interesting paper. So in my second paper, it's gonna be called "Is Redistribution Good for Our Health?" Examining the macro correlation between welfare generosity and health across EU nations over the last 40 years. So it's a paper published in the Journal of Health Politics, Policy and Law, and written by Alex Fox, Megan Reynolds, sorry, there is not the authors. And it was made with the funding that came from the National Science Foundation. Why did I choose this paper? I think it was really interesting to look a bit at the whole system, and not only healthcare system and how we allocate the money in the healthcare system, but in the rest of the society. And in this case, it looks at different type of policy that are not always only what we think, oh, putting money in a hospital or to the doctors, but really in a larger sense. So that's why I selected this paper. Then before starting, I want to define three concepts that I use in the paper, and took me a while to understand the paper because I did not sit to read those concepts before. So the first is redistribution, which are a policy that flatten the income distribution through progressive financing. The second is poverty reduction, which are policies that raise up the bottom of the distribution and target the poor. And finally, the risk protection, status preservation, which are policies that provide greater protection against economic insecurity and prevent large income losses. So those are three type of policy that's going to be studied in this paper. Okay, now in this paper, the authors advance a theory of political determinants as accruing along three pathways of welfare state effects: redistribution, poverty reduction, and status preservation, as mentioned before. And test this assumption by examining impacts of policy generosity on life expectancy at birth over the last 40 years. They merge new and existing welfare policy generosity data from the comparative welfare entitlement projects with data on life expectancy spanning from the 1980 to 2018 across 21 OECD countries. They found consistent and positive effect for total generosity, which is an existing measure of social insurance generosity, which is calculated for each policy and each country, which you can imagine is quite long to do and a lot of work. So they found that there is a positive effect for total generosity on life expectancy at birth across different model specification, and the magnitude is around 0.1 to a 0.15 year increase in life expectancy at birth. However, they found less consistent support for the redistribution and poverty reduction measure. They conclude that in addition to generalized effect of policy generosity on health, status-preserving social insurance might be an important and relatively overlooked mechanism in increasing life expectancy over time in advanced democracy. I found this paper very interesting because they look at a long time, One of the things they mention is the fact that usually policies, we don't see a direct impact at the moment unless they are applied to newborn babies. Otherwise, it takes quite a few years to see an impact of those policies on the life expectancy. Then they use this total generosity measure, which it's really applied for each policy in each country. It's depending and really represent the context of the country at that point in time. So a lot of work, and it's really focused. I found it that it was a lot of work and really important to present, and also opening the conversation to not only the healthcare system but the overall system in which we live.
Yeah. So I think number one, for all listening to us, you did a wonderful job summarizing this incredible article. It's a very long article, so it's not easy to summarize all of this. And I think one of the main takeaways that I will sleep on relies not only on the findings per se, but one of the motivations, and is this quote that I'm going to read directly from the article, that it says, finally, some scholars argue that one of the greatest threats to health not in either are or lies not in either absolute or relative deprivation, but rather in the loss of social status from a given baseline. Linked to traditional welfare state concerns with social risk protection, there is an increasing interest in how economic insecurity may erode health, and likewise, how income stabilizing social insurance can reduce status loss. So I think in a world where words or phrases like social mobility or the Gini index are so well in the conversation, either if you go to X, if you go to Instagram, if you go to Facebook, you're going to find this kind of words. So what I think the one of the arguments from the article of not losing the status that you already have, but being there already creates some kind of sustained for the health of the population is a very good aim for a lot of governments, and one that I think should not be overlooked. So I think again it's a long article. I don't want to put you in the spot, but from your read, what points do you consider are important to consider in the design of welfare state policies to maximize their impact on life expectancy?
First of all, thank you very much. Really long paper, but worth the while. So, yeah, I think to maximize the impact of welfare policy on life expectancy, the study recommends focusing on status preservation, as we mentioned, and then tailoring policy to national context, integrating welfare policy with other social services, ensuring adequate funding and sustainable design, and continuously monitoring and evaluating policy impact. This strategy can help policymakers design welfare policy that not only reduce poverty and inequality, but also significantly improve life expectancy and overall health across EU nation. I say EU nation because the paper was currently based on data from the European nations.
Yeah. And again, I don't think this paper is like a one fits all solution, but I think brings a lot of like the blueprint of what a welfare state in the future might look. And I think it's a word while reading. Thank you very much. So before we leave today, I would like to recommend our audience a movie that I saw recently. I was not aware of this movie whatsoever. I was just trying to look for something to say today, and I found this interesting movie. It's called Dark Waters. A lot of you might know it. It's one of the main actors is, depending on your taste, is going to be either Mark Ruffalo or Anne Hathaway. So from that, there's already a hook to watch this movie. So it's directed by Todd Haynes. I don't know any other movie by Todd Haynes, but apparently he's doing something different in this kind of story, this kind of narrative that he's building. So it's a compelling and sobering legal thriller. So if you are into thrillers and you like lawyers, this is your movie. I don't know if that's a good combination, but that's what makes this movie so strange and somehow so good. I'm not a movie expert. I'm not a movie critic. I'm just saying it's a good combination, and it works for some reason. So this movie dives deep into a disturbing environmental scandal. It's based on true story. that exposes a decade-long history of chemical pollution by the DuPont company, the company that makes paints. So I will argue that it's more than just a legal drama. It's a potent and disturbing reflection on corporate greed and far-reaching impact on environmental neglect. The film does an excellent job of making complex legal and scientific issues accessible and engaging. It's a story that needs to be told, highlighting the courage it takes to stand against systematic injustice and the difference one determined individual can come. So again, Mark Ruffalo is here and Hathaway is here. Tim Robbins, if you know it, is also here, and is supported the whole cast by Bill Kemp and Victor Garber. I think the fact number one that is based on a true story, and I think overall the moment that this movie came out, when there is so much environmental awake, not just in people, the environmental awake has been here for a long time, but now it's reflecting on policies. I just think it hits in the nail. So if you have 2 hours to spare either today or during your weekend, I would recommend seeing this movie called Dark Waters. Have you seen it, Matilde?
No, and I was so surprised when I saw the trailer. I was like, that's exactly the kind of movie I'm into. And then yeah, I got the hook from Mark Ruffalo on my side. And I was really surprised. I didn't knew about the movie. And so, well, at least the trailer, it sounds super interesting and quite exciting for not only on Sunday night, but for any day of the week. So yeah, quite also interesting and connecting a bit with what we're discussing in the podcast on health and all the factors that can affect health is looking a bit outside again of only the healthcare sector, that we live in an environment and whatever is around us is impacting our health. So a great reminder and of that, and then that environment can be polluted by certain way of a way of living and the way the system is set and certain companies work. So quite very interesting on that aspect. So slightly depressing, I think. Also, the it's not nice to see all those impact the environment can have on us. But yeah, I'm looking forward. Is in my watching list for this week. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Very good. And that will be the end of this month's episode. Thank you very much for listening to us, to develop time and engage with us. As usual, we receive comments, we receive suggestions. Our email is always open. And if you happen to know someone that likes health economic stuff and is willing to find a podcast that talks just about that, well, you found it. This is the sign you've been waiting for. And as usual, thank you very much for sharing our work with your network of colleagues. I think we will see you next month. Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye, Econ. Goodbye, everyone. See you in a month. Ciao.